You know the names: Brian Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse. Just incredible, once-in-a-generation artists. All of them gone way too soon, and all of them dead at the exact same age, 27. They're the most famous members of what's known as the 27 Club, which is one of pop culture's most tragic and honestly most enduring legends. And their story, it raises a pretty chilling question.
Right? It's a question that has just haunted fans for decades. Is it some kind of supernatural curse, a really, really strange statistical anomaly, or is there something else going on entirely? Well, that's what we're here to figure out.
So first things first, to really get why this idea has such a powerful grip on us, we've got to look at the story itself, the cultural myth that's been built around this one single number. At its heart, the whole legend of the 27 Club taps into this really dark, almost romantic idea that to achieve true, lasting, artistic immortality, a price has to be paid. A blood sacrifice right at the peak of your creative powers. I mean, it's a powerful, almost cinematic story, isn't it?
And this whole narrative is built on the legacies of these 6 artists, from Brian Jones all the way to Amy Winehouse. Every single one was a revolutionary voice in their genre. Their deaths, well, they felt clustered in a way that seemed almost deliberate, and that's what cemented this dark legend in the public imagination.
So okay, that's the powerful myth. It's a really compelling story. But is it true? To find out, we have to step away from the legend for a minute and look at the cold, hard data. We have to ask the single most important question here. Is there actually a dangerous spike in deaths for musicians at age 27? Is the club even a real thing, statistically speaking?
Now, to answer that, we need to understand a key concept called selection bias. Basically, it's our brain's tendency to look for patterns that confirm what we already believe is true. Well, kind of conveniently ignoring all the evidence that says we might be wrong. And you know what? The 27 Club is a perfect example of this in action.
So back in 2011, some researchers decided to put this whole myth to the test. They ran a major study looking at the deaths of over 1,000 successful musicians, all of whom had a #1 album in the UK. They were looking for one thing, and one thing only: a statistical spike at age 27.
And what did they find? A big, fat nothing. Zero. There was no statistically significant increase, no spike in musicians' deaths at age 27 compared to any other age around it. From a mathematical point of view, the curse, it just wasn't there.
And this chart just illustrates the point perfectly. The study actually found a higher number of deaths at ages 25 and 32. But we don't have a 25 Club or a 32 Club, do we? Of course not. Because those numbers, well, they don't have the same branding, the same story attached to them.
Okay, so if it's not a statistical curse, what's really going on? Is it all just one giant coincidence? Well, not exactly. The data doesn't point to a curse, but it does point to a perfect storm of very real-world pressures.
You see, that same study that debunked the 27 Club myth found another, much more alarming pattern. While age 27 isn't special, there is a genuine risk window. It turns out, musicians in their 20s and 30s are tragically 2 to 3 times more likely to die early than the rest of us. The danger is very real. It's just spread across 2 decades, not a single year.
Sociologists think this is caused by a perfect storm of factors. First, there's the Saturn return, an astrological idea about the chaotic end of your 20s that a lot of artists actually took seriously. Second, you have a lifestyle lag. That's where after years of touring and maybe substance use, the body just can't keep up anymore. And finally, there's the immense burden of the voice, that crushing pressure and isolation that comes with being a symbol for an entire generation.
So, we've got a statistical coincidence and a whole mess of real-world pressures. But how did all that transform into this iconic cultural legend? Well, the answer lies in how the story was packaged and sold to us.
This quote, this is a huge part of the answer. When Kurt Cobain died in 1994, his mother's heartbroken words were reported everywhere. For a lot of people, it was the very first time they'd heard the phrase, the club. And it just instantly cemented the idea in the public mind, making it feel like this real, tangible place for doomed artists.
And this gets to the real danger of the myth. It frames these deaths as a form of tragic romanticism, like it's an inevitable, fated part of the artistic journey. But the reality is so much harsher. These were preventable tragedies, often rooted in addiction, mental health crises, and a systemic failure of the industry to support its most vulnerable stars.
So, what should you take away from all this? The 27 Club isn't about numbers or curses. It's a cultural mirror. It reflects our own fascination with the whole doomed artist trope. and it highlights a very real, very dangerous lack of support systems for young people who are just thrust into the blinding light of global fame.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of provocative thought. The story of the 27 Club is captivating, for sure, but maybe its greatest tragedy is that it distracts us from the real issue. What if we stopped romanticizing the number and started looking at how to fix the industry that keeps creating casualties?